frustrating, and just hoping our politicians could come together and not act like children.
I didn't even get a text message to let me know that my flight was canceled. So, yeah, it's very frustrating.
So the travel misery continues for millions of flyers as the shutdown's impact ripples through the skies. And we're already seeing hundreds of delays. It's not even 7 a.m. Could be more cancellations coming today as airlines are expected to increase cuts by 6% at 40 of the nation's busiest airports. So just yesterday, more than 9,000 delays and some 2,400 cancellations. That's the FAA cancellations, that's the weather, but either way, it was one of the worst days for air traffic control since the shutdown began. All right, I want to talk more now with about the president, who's been threatening to dock air traffic controller pay if they don't show up for work. And then he also wants a $10,000 bonus for controllers who worked through the shutdown.
I don't know. I'll get it from someplace. I always get the money from someplace regardless. It doesn't matter. Some of them showed up early because they knew there was going to be a problem. Those people should be rewarded.
Joining me now to discuss, Harvey Skolnick, a retired FAA air traffic controller. Good morning, Harvey. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning. Great to be here with you again.
I want to get your reaction to the president's comments, and there's two things to unpack there. One, he says that he should that they want to reward the people who stuck it out and who showed up, but they also want to dock the pay of the people who didn't or who called in sick. What do you think when you hear that?
Well, it's pretty sad. First of all, docking people, I'm not sure how he could even do that. Rewarding people. What happens to the people who couldn't come to work one day because their child was sick or something, and so they had to call in sick, so they're not going to get the 10,000, but the other people who were fortunate enough to be able to show up every day, they're going to get it. So that could cause friction in the workplace. And one thing about air traffic control in towers and TRACONs and centers is that it is a teamwork operation. It is one that maybe the individual techniques in getting the job done are a little different and a little unique for each person, but in the end, it's kind of like a jazz combo. It comes together and fits. You don't want that to be destroyed.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying this is divisive in a moment when I think Sean Duffy was saying you had multiples of people retiring and just kind of leaving the business altogether.
No, I think he said 15 a day. Well, you don't replace that person in another day. That person doesn't get replaced for 3 years maybe. And so all of this, unless something is done really to somehow encourage people to come back to work instead of admonishing them, you really could have an effect on the air traffic system for years to come.
So with a deal on the table, that could end the shutdown. And if everything goes well, what would the new normal be? Do you think the system is ready for a busy holiday travel season?
Well, it's going to be the same as last year's holiday travel season. There are going to be delays because most of the facilities are short-staffed, and they're still working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. So yes, I think if everybody would come back to work after the shutdown ends, I think the delays will be fewer, but there'll still be massive delays. And I think controllers, by and large, around the country, from what I'm hearing, are very unhappy.
I think back to the 80s where air traffic controllers faced kind of a backlash when they went on strike. That was a different moment politically, but do you think there's a worry that the public could start to feel like this is somehow the fault of air traffic control, or that as this drags out, it'll become a problem for that already kind of beleaguered community of workers?
Well, the air traffic controller's job is scrutinized every day more than it ever has. In the 80s, it wasn't. No one really knew what was going on a controller's scope or at the control or on the runway. So, when there were issues like this before, where people had to come to work under shortage or crisis conditions, they didn't call in sick the way people seem to be calling in today. I'm not sure what the reason for that is. I don't want to make this political, but as an observation, it's not the same employee. It's not the same FAA.
What's your message to Sean Duffy? About how he's handled this, or what you'd like to see happen next to help out this pipeline of workers?
So here's my message. Number one, pay everybody very quickly. I mean, the president said he can find the money. There's an aviation trust fund. There's money there. You could pay them. The second thing I would do to encourage controllers to come back to work immediately is, let's say when the shutdown ends, and it's about to end very soon, it looks like, let's get back to the bargaining table with NATCA and perhaps discuss a new CBA, perhaps which would include a raise. And then maybe do something about finding people who have retired in the past 3 years because of the 56-year-old requirement, and see if we can encourage them to come back to work. I did an unscientific survey on Facebook, and it seems about 25% of them might want to come back to work. Under the conditions today, under this administration, maybe not so much. And the other thing is to waive the salary cap. There's a salary cap for federal employees, and it appears monthly. It's a yearly cap, but there's also a monthly cap. Waive that for the people who go over that each month.
All right, Harvey, a lot of suggestions there. Thank you.
A lot of suggestions.
All right, and Harvey Skolnick, thanks so much for talking with us.
CNN's Gloria Pasmino is at Newark Airport in New Jersey, one of the airports on this list that we were watching so closely. Gloria, what are you seeing this morning?
Well, Kate, look, it looks like sort of a regular early Tuesday morning here at the airport so far. On the board, we've seen just one cancellation, but it is pretty busy and moving here so far. We're going to see just how much it changes as the day proceeds. Now, like you said, while the end of the government shutdown appears to be in sight after that Senate vote late last night, travel is likely to remain difficult for the foreseeable future. And the reason for that is because until this shutdown is finalized, the FAA has to continue to follow this emergency order to incrementally reduce flights across major U.S. airports. Now, like you mentioned, this is supposed to increase up to 10%, and starting today, 6% of flights are going to be cut. Now, this is only expected to grow in the next few days to 8% on Thursday and eventually 10% on Friday until the shutdown is finalized. Now, so far today, we're seeing a little over 1,200 cancellations. So far, over 500 delays, and it's frustrating many of those travelers. Take a listen.
The uncertainty of not having any control no matter how organized you are, because you might get there and it's just not available to you, is a little scary, especially when you have a whole life that you have to get home to.
I'm exhausted, I am tired, I am mad. I had to call the customer service, they couldn't give me anything. Yeah, I'm tired, I just want to sleep. No, it's not okay.
Now, travelers are certainly aware of what's happening, the government shutdown, the fact that these delays are expected. So people are coming into the airport with sort of that expectation. Now, there's also the whole question of air traffic controllers. As you said in the beginning, Kate, they are now going into their second full missed paycheck. And we've heard from the Air Controllers Union about the fact that even after the shutdown ends, it does not necessarily mean that air controllers will be right back on the job immediately. And just for some context, last time there was a shutdown in 2019, it took air controllers more than 2 months to get the pay back that they were owed from the time that the government was shut down. We've also heard from the union about the fact that air traffic controllers have had to take on second jobs in order to make ends meet. So even if this government shutdown ends quickly perhaps in the next few days, by Friday, it is unlikely that we will see an immediate return of those air traffic controllers, which is certain to continue to keep causing problems when it comes to air travel, delays and cancellations. Kate?
And it does seem, in hearing from the union representatives, even from the Secretary of Transportation, that what is quote unquote normal is kind of a question still. What it's going to look like when everything is unraveled and they're back at it, because they have seen resignations among those air traffic controllers at a much higher tick than in a normal, you know, in a normal time because of this shutdown, because they're running out of money.
That's exactly right, Kate. And remember, before we had this shutdown, this is an industry that's been under an incredible amount of pressure in the last few years. We know there is a staffing shortage. We know that the FAA has been struggling to try and retain people, hire people. And we've also heard from the union that people who were expecting to retire are now doing it sooner. There's also the question of people who are being trained for the job right now, whether or not they're going to be able to complete that training, whether they're going to be able to keep getting the stipends that they get while they train to continue to do that. So as a whole, this is an industry and a career area that has been under incredible pressure in the last few years.